Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm going to talk today about Mao Zedong. And Mao Zedong was not a hero. He was not a warrior. He was pure evil, and he was a villain. And the truth needs to be told about him. Okay, he's still seen by the current Chinese government as the unifier of China. That he brought China together, and his body is on display in China, his major tourist site where tourists and locals can see that. But the fact is that Mao Zedong was responsible for at least 7 million deaths. And the two most common periods for the deaths were the events called the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. Okay, the Great Leap Forward happened first, and Mao Zedong told all Chinese to stop what they were doing and make steel. Well, he told all the agricultural workers to do that too. So nobody was making food. So at least 30 million people died of starvation because nobody was there to make food. They were starving to death trying to make steel. And there was really no purpose in making that steel. Mao Zedong didn't lay out any plans or any guidelines for why they were making steel. So instead of taking responsibility for it, he blamed the situation on the sparrows, and the birds, said the birds were eating the crops. So he told the people to, if you see a bird perched on a tree, scare the bird, hit the tree, shake the tree, or so you can keep the bird flying. Well, lots of birds died of exhaustion. It was a pretty sick and sadistic thing to do. And lots of sparrows died during that time from just sheer exhaustion. And Peng Dehuai, who was Mao's top general, he said, Mao, you're killing your people. This needs to stop. And Mao Zedong did not kill Peng Dehuai, but he banished Peng Dehuai into the countryside in exile. He stripped Peng Dehuai from his upper class status he went down to lower class status. And Peng Dehuai was a good military commander. He was a good military tactician. As I've said before, I thought he was on the wrong side in the Korean War. But Peng Dehuai was his loyal subject, and Mao trashed him. That's just how sick he was. And then from 1966 until Mao's death in 1976, there was a proletariat cultural revolution. And basically, Mao Zedong brainwashed a bunch of teenagers into into calling themselves the Red Guards, and they wore, and he also brainwashed them into wearing a red armband around their sleeves, and they called themselves Red Guards. And the teenagers would go with brass knuckles on their fists and go beat a bunch of teachers to death, or trash a bunch of teachers' classrooms, close down schools, because the Mao Zedong told them that the teachers were secretly bourgeois members and enemies of the revolution, and usually that was rarely the case. And so for 2 years, they didn't have any schools in China. The education system went down during that time. And then he also encouraged the Red Guards to rat out their own parents, to rat their own parents out to the government, to turn their parents in, and sometimes to beat their parents. And sometimes the Red Guards killed their own parents. It was just a sick, sadistic situation. Just sick. And Mao Zedong, and then Mao Zedong, he had his fourth wife, Jiang Qing, otherwise known as Madame Mao, plan out a lot of the Cultural Revolution, but Mao Zedong was the main force behind it. And that marriage was not a marriage. It was more like a partnership. Mao Zedong highly regretted his marriage to Madame Mao. And Madame Mao was a former movie star in Shanghai, China. And during the Cultural Revolution, you couldn't have any ancient or traditional Chinese signs or artifacts or anything like that. And you couldn't have any Western artifacts neither, because that was considered too capitalist. One official criticized Mao and also criticized the Cultural Revolution. He was tied to an oven, drugged through the streets, and then the Red Guards beat him with brass knuckles. And some families were sent into exile during that time, and when they were waiting to go into exile, waiting for their plane or waiting for their train, the Red Guards would have brass knuckles and then beat the children, little children. Usually in that case not to death, but beat them enough where there was a lot of bruises, marks, and scars, sometimes permanent. And also, the government would have the Red Guards go loot a bunch of wealthy Chinese homes or a bunch of businesses, steal a bunch of gold, silver, and platinum, and then give it to the Chinese government officials. Well, the Chinese government officials basically used that money to party, used it on luxury. And so after the dirty work was done, after the Red Guards' thug and dirty work was done, they went to Beijing needing food and water, but the Chinese government didn't give them hardly any food and water, very limited, so it led to the Red Guards fighting and killing each other, often very violently, over the limited food and water that was there. So Mao Zedong died in 1976 from congestive heart failure. So, but he was, like I said, he was a demon. He was evil. He was very cold-blooded. Anyways, hope everyone's doing well. Take care. God bless, and bye-bye. Bye-bye.